The Withered Flowers podcast contains discussion of adult themes such as domestic violence and sexual themes. We have strong opinions and we like to use the F word, so listener discretion is advised.
Hello, my fellow flowers. Welcome to the Withered Flowers podcast. I am Digital Girl, and I have my colleague, friend, and fellow Tears on the Withered Flower lover, Auntie Laura. How you feeling today?
Hello, I am doing fantastic.
Glad to hear it. I am doing.
I mean, doing is better than doing nothing, right?
Yes, it definitely is. For our listeners at home, it is basically uh, on the edge of winter. So we on the East Coast have weathered a snow apocalypse and more snow and now rain since we last spoke. I don't know if we're done with snow yet, but your guess is
Well,
as good as mine.
yeah, we're about to start spring down here in the South. For all of you listeners, I live in the great state of Virginia, which is kind of in between. It is not quite as south as Florida, but it's just north enough to where we can get some seasons, which I never got those in Florida. So the temperatures have started to rise a little bit. I'm actually looking at the forecast, and it looks like there's going to be pollen in the air soon. So,
Button.
yeah,
Ew.
definitely get your Claritin.
Get your clarity now. I mean, spring is almost sprung. We'll be prancing into spring soon enough because March. But I'm not quite confident right now that winter has sang its last war song. So I'm going to refrain from saying spring has sprung until it's actually sprung, if that makes sense.
Yep, that is totally fair.
Well, you know what brought us here today. We are going to do a read through of chapter 6 of Tears on a Withered Flower.
Oh, why don't you get us
Yes,
started, my friend?
absolutely. So there's nothing like starting from the beginning. So the chapter actually opens up with Hae soo in the flower shop, like she usually is. And she is thinking to herself as an inner dialogue. And it starts with, "It's been 2 weeks since that day." Aside from Minchall getting so busy with work, and we see a picture of Minchall canoodling with Ari at work over coffee. And the dialogue continues that he's been coming home late on, or even going in on weekends. And we see Hae working at her job, and it looks like she is a little flustered while looking at a skeevy businessman who is requesting that she pour him a drink. He goes on to think everything else has stayed the same more or less. And as for the strange young man, and when she says strange young man, in this case, it's the rose guy, also known as Taeha. He quickly distanced himself from me. In the last chapter, she told him that she didn't want to be acquaintances, and he said, "I'll be a good boy." And since then, he has actually stopped speaking to her. So we do see him come, he still comes into the flower shop. However, rather than requesting service directly from Jesus, he is going to her coworker to get flowers, but he is still coming in. He just is following orders to the letter, right?
But yeah, well, we did say that, he was following malicious compliance. And here we
Malicious
are.
compliance indeed, like, down to the letter. He said
Yeah.
he said that he would be a good boy and that he would do as she says, and here we have it. We don't really know why he continues to buy roses.
You
Um,
know, I'm thinking it's because I think he still wants to stay within her orbit,
Yes.
and I think he's trying to make sure that she knows he's still interested, and he's still respecting her wishes, right? Because he's, not engaging with her. He's treating her like a total stranger. So I think this is his way of being maliciously compliant. But I also think it's his subtle way of saying, I'm still here and I'm just waiting for you to notice me. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting.
Agree with you on that.
Yeah, I feel like he's really trying to seek her attention, and I think this is his way of doing that, but still respecting her boundaries, if that makes
More
sense.
more than it having him come in, 'cause I agree with you on the points of him, remaining visible. I think I'm wondering what the significance of the 10 roses is, and if he's ever going to, like, expand on it, but I do agree with you with when you say that he wants to stay in her orbit and within, earshot and within an eye's glance so that she stays aware of him without invading her space so much that she feels intimidated or scared or annoyed by his presence. He's literally giving her distance while not being like and being distant while
Mhm.
still being present. And I do think that that's a ploy to continue to occupy some of her attention even if he's already declined his advances, which is
Yeah.
yeah. Um, in the story, it continues on, and we see this, solemn but very pretty, in my opinion, picture of Hae soo, and she's doing a flower arrangement with some white roses, and she's looking down. She looks really introspective but solemn at the same time. And she goes on to think, right after I told him we should remain strangers, and then there's a picture of Taeha with the umbrella. He's looking at her, and he says, "I'll be a good boy." So she's recollecting that last interaction where he said that he would do as she wants. She thinks that strangely obedient reply was the last thing he ever gave me before his presence vanished from my life entirely, which is kind of funny that she says his presence vanished from her life. She's in the scene that these words come up. She's sitting at the counter arranging flowers while her coworker has come around the counter to walk up in front of Teha and hand him the bouquet of roses. So he hasn't necessarily disappeared from her orbit. She's just realized that their relationship has met its end before it even had a beginning. And he thinks to herself, like his interest had been nothing more than a brief flicker of curiosity. And then we see a picture of her text messages, and there is unanswered text messages, by the way, and it says, "Make sure to eat. Are you staying over time again?" It looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, it looks like the messages haven't even been read.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I will give you one guess as to who these text messages are for.
Right.
Our favorite Ginger. But
Our
I did wanna
favorite.
Yeah. I did wanna go back real quick briefly, if I may,
Mhm.
though,
Go
to talk
ahead.
about the one panel, where she was talking about, how that strange obedient reply was the last thing he ever gave me before his presence vanished from my life entirely. And, and I wanna talk about, like, this particular panel because we're getting, the view overhead, and as Digital Girl said, Hey Sue is sitting behind the counter, she's arranging some flowers, and then, Ponytail Girl is,
Mhm.
joyously, giving the roses to Taeha, but I think it's really interesting, how you have this, like, big space between them, and they're, like, on
Mhm.
opposite sides. It almost kinda goes back to that line or, that one quote where she's talking about how she had to draw a line, and I feel
Yep.
like that's what we're seeing here, they're on opposite sides. But I also think that what's really interesting is the framing of how she puts it when she says, "His presence vanished from my life entirely." So, she's not really saying that he vanished, it's just that he
Mhm.
doesn't she no
register.
longer really feels his presence, and I think it's because he is no longer interacting with her, and I think this panel is a very good representation of, like, what is going on between them right now, so I just wanted to point that out, so
It's funny, like, it's clear that his presence didn't register. In chapter 1, she had not even realized that he was coming into the flower shop frequently to buy bouquets of roses until her coworker called it to her attention that this man had been coming in. I honestly, even though this is, seems like a simple statement, the picture and her recollection of him, as well as the fact that he is still continuously coming into the store and she recognizes that there is the distance, belies the idea that his presence vanished from her life entirely. I think she is completely in denial.
oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because it's if his presence did not register, you wouldn't have even thought of him. He would have gone back into the realm of non-existence, but it's the other way around. He is treating her as if she does not exist in this time, and she is aware that he no longer he's complying with what she asked and not interacting with her at all. Like, there's a level of awareness that I'm picking up from her inner dialogue that lets us know that he really hasn't vanished. It's just that she's accepted the fact that
He's no longer
this.
talking to her.
Exactly. 'Cause
Mhm.
like, if it was back to normal, then she wouldn't be thinking of him at all. She never thought of any other man other than Minchol.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have that text message screen with Minchol not answering her text messages when she's trying to make sure that he's okay and checking in on him. Um and, we get more of her inner dialogue while this goes on, and she's thinking to herself, "I told myself it was for the best, that he, as in Taeha, hadn't really been serious about being acquaintances. After all, the deeper the emotions run, the deeper the scars they leave behind." And we can see Hae soo in a picture. She has on a pain patch. She's looking at her phone, and she's looking at those ignored texts from that she sent to her ex-husband, still partner, and she's just thinking about the ramifications of having deep emotions for anyone. It's such a sad statement to say that the deeper the emotions run, the deeper the scars they leave behind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes me really sad that that's her thought process when it comes to love itself.
Yeah, I mean, she's also been denied love in a lot of ways. And I know that there are some things that we don't find out about until later on in the story, but it is very obvious that she has been hurt by a lot of people in the past. And those
Mhm.
scars definitely run deep. Like, I have scars, from when I was a kid, and some of that stuff will stay with me till the day I die. And that's how emotional scars run. It's not something that you can just get rid of. Uh and
No.
and I feel like she is one of I feel like that's all she really knows when it comes to deep emotions. And
Yeah.
and sometimes it makes me wonder if maybe that's why she is not as responsive, is because she doesn't wanna set herself up for false hope only to be crushed. Although, on the opposite side, which makes this a little paradoxical, but she is holding hope because she has that hope that they'll pay off their debt and that her and Minchul will get remarried and they will live happily ever after.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't know. I find it that it's sad that she's relying on him and paying off their debt to have a good future. But, I mean, that's her dream,
That
and
is her dream. I get it, but I don't think she has a fear of human relationships, to be honest with you, just off of the context of the last 6 chapters. If we think about chapter 5, she felt regret when she had the confrontation with Mitchell after bringing him the umbrella. He's kind of like telling her that she's embarrassing, she thought to herself how embarrassing it was that she drew a line between herself and Taeha when he asked to be acquaintances, and she, like, literally chastised herself for overstepping her like, being too big for her britches to think that that man had any other designs on her other than the acquaintanceship. And, Minchall had already berated her and said men and women can be friends, and you don't have any friends, so you don't even know what it's like to have them. He basically hits the brick and then threw it right in her face when it came to friendship, and she had instead of, like, thinking about his words so much that, like, she took it to heart that he was being mean, it was more so she's like, "Yeah, I had an opportunity to have a friend, and then I dashed it with this misconception that he was interested in me in anything as a mere curiosity." And that is something that I think will, of course, be expanded on later in later chapters. I don't think she was afraid to be friends with someone. I do think she wanted to make sure that he was aware that she is a woman who is not someone he could, like, fool around with and draw boundaries between her and him because she's in a relationship. Even if it's
Yeah.
not the best relationship, she's in a relationship, and she did not want to, like, she wanted to set proper boundaries in the situation. And she made the correct assumption. I think she made the correct assumption about Taeha. There's no reason that a young man who clearly shows marked interest in her wouldn't be interested in her as a woman. There's no reason that he would be friends with her. There's no reason, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I will
Not
say that,
shown.
like, with Hae soo, I feel like she just doesn't like to make assumptions because sometimes
Yeah.
assumptions can be very detrimental to you. And
Yeah.
it's not that I think that she is afraid per se, but I think it's more of the fact that she is afraid to hope. Maybe that's the better way to put it. Like, I
I
feel like
do
she's
think
one of
yeah.
those that would be cautiously optimistic. Like, you know, Minchell now has a job. And although buying what he needed did put a strain on their budget, she is still cautiously optimistic that they might be able to pay their debt off.
Yeah, that they will be. She did said it in the affirmative that they will be able to pay out their debt down faster, not like in an instant, and get remarried. That was the idea. I just feel like he feels a level of shame around her assumption. Like you're correct. She didn't want to make an assumption. She felt foolish for assuming anything other than exactly what Teja said, right? But there ain't no
Mhm.
man bringing you a sandwich and giving you his
Iced coffee.
indirect indirect kiss iced coffee. Let's be real, indirect
Yeah,
kiss iced
I was about to
coffee.
bring that up too.
Unless he is interested. Ain't no man just coming in to your job, okay, on a daily buying flowers if there's not a level of interest. As no man going to come find you after work while it rains to walk you home in silence. Um, she is not wrong, but unfortunately, and I understand her, like, she is in a relationship, so she was not wrong for trying to cut off a potential source of stress because she doesn't wanna encourage his attention. And
Yeah,
that was
and
the
I get
right
that.
she did the right thing,
She
whereas we
did.
know that Minchol is not doing the right thing because he's already told his office that he is single and he is walking around assuming the actual identity of a single man to anyone but Hae soo. So, anyway,
Yeah.
pisses me off. I mumble about him. I'm gonna do the good thing and control myself. I'm controlling myself.
Maybe I'll be the one to go off about him this time.
Maybe, but it just add fuel to the fire because there's nothing I have to say that is not like there has not been one chapter since we started where there's a favorable that like depicts him in a favorable light.
Yeah.
Um, and
It
we're
really
into, you know,
hasn't.
6 chapters in. Any hoozles. So,
Any hoozles.
any ways. So we get another picture of Hae soo, and she's at the Korean barbecue spot, and she is working. She's pushing a cart. She's serving tables, and she's thinking to herself because she's still looking at her phone while she's trying to do her job. Bad idea, by the way. That's just an aside. You shouldn't be on your phone when you're in the middle of work. But que sera, whatever will be. And she's thinking to herself, strange. Min Chol still hasn't texted me back. I didn't even get to see him last night before I fell asleep. I wonder if he's back at work now. And she's thinking about this, and then she gets a call from the table where a man's like, "Excuse me, I need 4 orders of pork belly at each table." And Jesus turns around and she says, "I'll bring that right out for you." So she hurries along to bring them some meat so that they can like grill some pork belly. Love pork
Mm,
belly, by the way.
yeah,
And we
me
get to see
too.
pork belly sizzling on the grill with some mushrooms. And then there's more dialogue, but it's not Jesus this time. It turns to the point of view of the customers. So at the table, there's a conversation going on, and they're asking, "How do you feel?" And now that you finally signed the divorce papers, sir, feel like you can finally breathe again? And it looks like it's this, a salary man guy just sitting at the table. They're having an outing, eating nice pork belly, living a life, drinking some drinks. And the gentleman, who's an older gentleman, he looks about what, 50,
Yeah,
almost
I would
60.
say definitely, like, middle age, like, between, like, upper 40s, early 50s at least. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a little long in the tooth, if you catch my drift,
Yes, I
okay?
do.
And a bit rotund, but neither here nor there. We listen, we don't judge. So definitely, he responds to his coworker asking him about the divorce. He says, "Definitely. I'm just happy I don't have to deal with that terrible woman's nagging anymore." And then, of course, he starts being skeevy, and he drapes his
Ugh.
arm around the shoulder of one of his um, female employees, and he says, "Oh, now I can sit next to the pretty employees at the team dinners all I want. Ha ha ha." And the female employee is like, "Ha ha ha," like very hesitant and flustered. And you see a little thought bubble that says, "I want to go
I
home."
wanna go home. I feel you, girl.
Girl, I get it. I do not want that
Ugh.
man. He is not a You guys, not for nothing, nobody shaming. He is not an attractive man. He's not fit.
Mm-mm.
The face is not the he d his face card is absolutely declined.
Yes.
The account is shut off, and he's basically kinda skeevy, and the poor lady's just like, "I would just really rather go home." Not I get
Yeah.
her. I feel her down to the max. So, we
Yeah.
get the next scene, and they're all cheersing at this point over a lovely sizzling pork belly on the grill, and it says, "Of course, sir. I think you've earned the right to enjoy this new chapter of your life, with the company doing so well and all. Maybe you could even explore some other fish in the sea." And then the customer says, "Ahem, do you think so?" And he goes on. He's kind of, they've been drinking shots of soju at this point. He looks kind of inebriated, and he has that like drunk blush on across his like cheek and nose. And then he
Mhm.
says, "Well, I guess it's always nice to have a woman to warm your side. You see, I've been thinking," and then here comes Hey Sue in focus while she's like bending down, wiping down the table, and you can see his inner thoughts. "I'd like to snatch up someone like her, with a nice body and a face that doesn't need a pound of makeup to shine. From what I've seen at the last few team dinners I held here, she seems hardworking and down to earth." And he's like covertly looking at her while she drinking another shot of soju. "She can't be more than 10 years younger than me. Also, she must know I'm the owner of the company, since I've been here often enough. Once she knows I'm interested, she'll be over the moon." Sir,
Oh, no. Uh-uh.
boy, please.
Mm-mm.
Like, didn't
Mm-mm.
even consider that this woman might have a man. Can we talk
Yeah.
about inflated sense of self here?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel I I have witnessed situations that are, like, similar to this where it's like, "Oh, well, they'll totally go for me," and I'm like, "Mhm, sure they will," and then they're surprised when they don't. Um,
Nobody's going for you, sir. You
yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
You skeeve out your female employees.
I was just
No.
gonna say that too. Like, he's, got his arm around his female employee. She looks clearly uncomfortable, and he's giving off some creepy vibes too.
Yep.
And it's like, that girl does not wanna be with you. And why are you putting your grubby hands on her? And I will say that that is the one thing that I am glad about Americans is that we don't have to do these team dinners. And I have, read that this is a big thing in like Asian cultures,
Mhm.
where companies will have their employees go out for like team building and to build relationships and they don't want you to like not drink. I mean, I've had some really cool bosses and some not so great bosses. And even with the great bosses, I would not want to drink with them.
No, I agree with you. I am totally glad that that is not the like company culture, at least at my job, and it's not required that you go out to team dinners all the time. To be honest with you, in corporate culture and in America, depending on where you are, there are team outings, right? I know that I've had a few
Yeah, so have I.
in my team, but it's not like the frequency. It's clear that he's kind of a regular there. He's recognized her. He's come in more than once with his team,
Mhm.
in Korea and some other, corporate culture in APAC or Asia Pac. There are places where the expectation is if your boss says that there's a team dinner, you have to go. Among other
Yeah.
things that structure and hierarchy and things of that nature where it's like you don't leave the office before your boss does. Oh god, I'm so glad I don't have that. But
Yeah,
I
me
will
too.
say, um, everything about this situation is giving a very inflated sense of self,
Yeah.
not rooted in reality, and the idea that he, who has not flirted with him in any way or paid him any mind beyond the mark attention due to him as a customer, that she would somehow care about the money that he makes because he's the owner of a company is actually pretty ridiculous. Because if she wasn't fawning over you before,
She
she's
ain't
not gonna
gonna
fawn
find
over
out
you.
now. And that just gets back to like the sense of entitlement that this guy has. Because if you look at like his body language with the female employee that's there, like he thinks that he is entitled to be able to put his arm around her on her shoulder.
Yeah, talking about pretty,
Just
and I can sit with the pretty employees,
if
female
I
employees now.
all I want, and I feel like that right there tells you everything you probably need to know about that divorce,
Yeah,
about how
gross.
he's like, "Oh, I can sit next to the pretty employees all I want." That
Gross.
just screams like entitlement if I've ever heard of, and of course, audacity to the nth degree. And
The
like
yuckiest.
yeah, and, like, I get that for some people, when they do go through divorce, sometimes it is a good thing, it is a thing to be celebrated because you're finally getting out of that crappy situation, and I'm really hoping that when they toast this guy, I'm really hoping that one of the male employees saw how uncomfortable the female employee was, and that's where they're like, "Oh, let's toast," so I'm hoping that was a way to get his
Divert
paws
the
off of
off
her.
of the
Yeah,
filthy little paws. He literally diverted attention and it, like, landed on poor Hazel, who's literally minding her business and doing her job. Like, that's crazy.
yeah,
Now, we get more of his, like, inner dialogue, unfortunately.
mhm.
And it's gross. Anyway, also, she must know I'm the owner of the company since I've been here often. Once she knows I'm interested, she'll be over the moon. And then he literally holds up his shot glass that's empty and just says, "Hey, you, pour me a drink." And he's directing that request at Hae soo, who's pushing a cart across because she had just finished like bussing a table. And his underling, I'm just gonna call him an underling because he calls him boss, responds and says, "Of course, sir. It'd be my pleasure to." And the boss guy goes on to say, "No, no, not you. he goes on and says, "I want her to do it for me." So, like, in this panel, we see Hae soo looking taken aback, uh, on a blank white background. It's, like, taken aback by the request, and this goofy lump oh
Lump of
idiot
a
of a
man.
lump of a malformed lump of a man is holding out his glass to her for a shot, um, and he looks inebriated, and
Yeah, he's definitely got a good buzz on.
yeah, and even then, like, after that panel, we see another where you could see it's a Casey isn't focusing, she's not speaking, but she's wide-eyed and taken aback, and she's like she doesn't respond, but she's looking at him directly, and the coworker, his colleague, or his, direct report says, "Oh, sir, they don't do that here." And then in little outside of a speech bubble, it also says, "If you're feeling tipsy, we can wrap it up here." And he's ignoring what people are saying and just speaks to Jesus again. "What are you waiting for?" He says. "Pour me a drink." And he's looking at her demanding. Now he's getting irritated and he's still got that drunk blush. And he's telling her to pour him a drink while holding up the like cup. Like, well,
Okay.
sir.
So I'm going to try to stay calm
Yes.
because there is nothing more I hate than when you have a piece of shit like this trying to bully you into doing what they want you to do because it benefits them.
Mm-hmm.
So for this motherfucker right here, it is not about the drink. It is
Nope.
about control. It
Yep.
is about how he can coerce her to do something that she doesn't want to do. And it's about making her compliant.
Period.
And in my opinion, I feel like it's almost as if he's testing the waters and he's trying to groom. Now, the reason why I say this is because Auntie has been going on kind of a deep dive about the Epstein files, and there were things that they would do to test the waters. And I feel like this is what this jerk off is trying to do. Because if
Dominance
we
play.
Exactly, and, like, when we get to the earlier panels, like, he's sitting there, like, eyeing her, right? Like, all she's trying to do is just bust tables, get through her shift because she's probably gotta work again. And then he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "I'd like to snatch up someone like her with a nice body and a face that doesn't need a pound of makeup to shine." And I think it's interesting that he says, "I would like to snatch up someone like her." It's not even, "I would like to date, I would like to get her attention of someone like her." He says, "I would like to snatch her up." Like, she is just a random thing that he can just pick up and claim ownership of.
Yep.
And I think this particular type of speech is very telling for a lot of reasons. And it could be
Very much
maybe I'm
so.
just reading into things more.
No, you're not. You're right on the nose. You have it right on the nose. The fact that it was clear from the mode of the he's been there before, right? He's been
Yes.
to this spot more than once for team dinners. He is aware that pouring drinks is not something that the service is not the kind of service that is provided at this place of business. He literally was ruminating over whether or not he had the ability to like find find other fish in the sea, decided to target Jesus and then did a dominance play to like make her coerce her into complying with his orders, even though it is not something that is done in that type of environment. He
Mhm.
thinks he can, because he is the customer, she has to do what he says because he said it and he spends money. So his money is king and he can make her do as he pleases.
Yeah.
And A, gross.
Mhm.
B, what makes you think that regardless of where she works, I know you're the owner of the company, but what makes you think that you have the level of clout and or power to try to coerce someone into doing what you want them to do because you want them to do it? And she's not going to date you, bro. She's not
Yeah.
going to date you. She has a semi-husband at home, and not for nothing, he is not you. He looks nothing like you. You have no chance. If Taeha didn't have a chance and he's actually nicer, you being a dipshit is not gonna get you anywhere. I'm so
Mm-mm.
sorry. She could do way better than you on a Tuesday than you can do your entire fucking life, and you own a business. I need you to find and you her his direct reports are like, "If you're feeling tipsy, we should probably leave. Don't make a scene." Trying to
Yeah.
trying to, like, mitigate and
De-escalate.
kinda, like,
Mhm.
de-escalate, but he's literally insisting upon this course of action where he's trying to force her to pour the drink for him. And she's not doing it, mind you, but
Yeah.
it's more than gross,
It
and
really is.
it unfortunately escalates too.
Yeah. Because I also wanted to point out real quick too,
Yeah.
before we move to the next panel. I wonder what he would do if someone tried to do this to one of his employees. And I also wanna
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, I bet you he would probably get up in their face, be all righteous
Maybe.
indignant. Um, you know, I'm sure that anyways.
We
Um,
don't know.
yeah, but I'm
I don't
also
think he would
wondering
defend.
if, like, he's got a habit of doing this because, the one panel where he first says, "Hey, you, pour me a drink," and it's not, "Excuse me, ma'am," or "Excuse me, miss." It's, "Hey,
Yeah.
which is very impersonal. It's almost
Demeaning.
dehumanizing, and
Yeah.
demanding, like he's trying to give her orders. And
Yep,
then,
and
like
she's not your underling.
exactly, she ain't your employee. And then, like,
Right.
I'm also wondering if the guy that was offering to pour him a drink, I wonder if he's kinda used to this behavior because I feel like, he's the one that's trying to, like, like we said earlier, like, de-escalate, and he's trying to redirect the things, like, maybe he's the one that said, "Oh, well, if you drink too much, maybe we can wrap it up." So, I don't know. I have
I don't know
questions,
either.
but
Wait,
yeah.
well, who's to say, Like, it's clear that he's single and ready to mingle now, so we don't know if he's ever committed such atrocities before. But whatever the case, he's committing to the bit, and I hate that for him because it doesn't look good.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't look good in front of your employees either, but what else, man? This man is not this is not how you go about professing your like adoration for a woman that you're interested in. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think in the next panel, he starts to throw a little temper tantrum because he's not getting what he wants. Because all of a sudden we hear shatter, "Do you have any clue who I am?" And
Mm,
then the owner comes out and he's like, "What's going on?" And then her barbecue bestie friend is like, "Sir, we need your help." And then Hae soo was just standing there and she's kind of like looking down. She's got her hands in front of her. And he, meaning the jerk off that is like demanding that she pour a drink, we can see he's got his finger pointed right at her. We can tell that he's going off on her. And bless that female employee. She is standing with Hae soo,
yep.
trying to comfort her. And then the guy that was sitting across from this jerk off is trying to get him to calm down. So the word bubble that we get is Hae soo was just doing her job and that jerk decided to harass her. And then at this point, like a lot of people in the restaurant are just, kind of looking. And then, we hear part of his tirade. "I'm the owner of Mirai Tech. Without my money, your little restaurant wouldn't survive another day." And then the owner comes up and he says, "Excuse me, sir, may I ask what's going on here?" And he's like, "Oh, perfect timing. You're the owner, aren't you? It's absolutely ridiculous that your employee thinks she can speak to me like this. After all the business I brought to this place in this economy." And then the owner is bowing and he says, "Of course, sir. Allow me to apologize on her behalf. I'll bring out some more pork belly for your table on the house." And he's like, "No, I want her to kneel and beg for forgiveness. And then we just get like a panel of like Hae soo just kind of standing there. And then we get Fucker McGee's inner dialogue, and he's like, "How dare she reject me? She's just a nobody who serves me at KBBQ. I'll put her in her place."
Oh, they say there's commonly said amongst the incel network that men are more logical, but we already see what happened in this particular situation. Not all situations, but in this situation. And it does happen to women who reject men's advances. He flies off the handle, something shattered. We don't see what it is in any other panels, but he doesn't have the shot glass in his hand anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if threw the shot glass. So he's literally having a temper tantrum because she refused to comply. And then he's starting to like throw around his weight. And I'm not talking about his like body weight, but his power to say, I'm the owner of a company. The reason that you're even open right now is because I bring business in. And then he has the audacity to tell the manager that he wants her to kneel before him and beg for forgiveness because she dared to reject his advances. This is such BS. He's like, "I'll put her in a place." Why do you think that you have the power to put her in a place? Because she simply said, "We decline to pour you a drink." That is not her job. You literally are surrounded by people who are willing to comply with you and put up with your shit. And you want to like threaten, harass, and harangue the one woman who's been minding her business. She hasn't been flirting with you. She's given no indication of interest, and you've decided in your head a whole story, deciding that you were going to get her interest, you were going to scoop her up, you were
Mhm.
going to like have her attention, that you were going to get into a relationship with her. And when she dashed your stupid little fairy tale in your head, you're all fucked up.
Yep. And it's just the the audacity of how he's like, "How dare she reject me? You know, she's just a nobody who serves me at a KBBQ, and I'll
Mm,
put her in her place." But okay, but sir, first off, you're the jerk off that thought you could snatch her up, right?
yeah.
And you thought that, she's got a nice body and she doesn't need a pound of makeup to shine according to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you thought she was good enough to pursue, and like now she's
Yep.
not because she's just a nobody who serves me at a KBBQ. But you're the one who feels wronged because she said no. And
Yep.
I have actually had a situation where a guy tried to make me feel bad because I rejected him. And like, I met him at a job I was working at, right? And we went on a date. And at the time, I was working two jobs. And the day that we went on a date, I only had one job to work at that day, but I had a massive headache. And it's probably lack of sleep, it could be maybe I just didn't eat enough, I mean, I don't know, but I had this headache all damn day, but I didn't wanna cancel on him, so we ended up going to the movies. He was kind of an oddball, I mean, whatever. And by the end of the date, we went to the movies. My head was still pounding. He wanted to go have food. And I was like, "Well, I'm really sorry, but I need to go home. I've had a headache like all day and I have to work at both my jobs tomorrow." And immediately, this guy got pissy. He got in his truck and he drove off. And I was like, "Okay." And then a day later, he sends me a really nasty email. He called me a fat bitch. He told me I was no, actually, I take that back. He called me a fat nasty bitch, um, because, I wore baggy clothes to cover up my nastiness and that all the women he dated before me were a lot prettier than I was. So my reply to him was, "Well, you were the one who asked me out on a date. You were the one who's found me attractive. So what does that say about you?"
Mm,
So, with all that being said, I hate it when people try to turn that around on you. And that's
yep.
exactly what this guy is doing. He is projecting all of his insecurity on her. Like, how
Yep.
dare you? and, oh,
Gross.
it is
It's
very
freaking gross.
disgusting. I just wanna poke out his little piggy eyes.
And, looking in the news, at least in the United States, you will see numerous stories of what happens to women. Like in the news, when a woman rejects a man's advances,
Mhm.
how far and extreme the reaction to a simple no or no thank you, sends a person into a spiral to the
Yes.
point where a woman's life could either be in danger, her health could be in danger. Um, the instances of women being harmed, bodily harm, you know, from hurt feelings about rejection. Like, it's okay for someone to say no. The
Exactly.
people are not being taught about consent and
Mm-mm.
learning how to properly manage their emotions. If someone tells you no, then it's no. And it's not up for negotiation. Keep it moving. You could actually de escalate this situation. If a simple no is like the end of the world for you, and you want to act out in such a way that you put yourself in the spotlight for embarrassment, and then you blame that person for embarrassing you. You should have just took it on the chin and been like, "Oh, right, I'll just get the drink poured by my employee." It's all of these extra hurt emotions that this man seems to be going through. And this woman is just trying to do her job. She wasn't rude to him in any way. She probably just told him, we don't do that at this establishment. He's taking it to like the nth degree of drama for simply
Yes.
being told no. I think it's the audacity that she in her position could say no to him when he actually considers him or deems himself above her station. How could she dare decline doing as he says because he's above her? She's a nobody. And I was like,
Mhm.
have you looked at yourself? Have you looked yourself in the mirror? Sir, there is nothing about you that will make a woman want to comply. You are horribly rude, nasty, and ill-favored. And I hope he kicks rocks with open-toed shoes on.
That is one of my favorite expression of yours. Yeah, I mean, he's just overall a garbage human being. I mean, I will say that, despite his physical appearance, I think that if he were to be a nicer person, I think that maybe people would be or women would be more inclined to wanna spend time with you, but, just looking at that panel where, he's talking about how dare she reject me, and then you see just that little panel of his little piggy eyes, I really wanna poke him out, because he's just disgusting, and he's projecting all of that on her, and, ugh,
And
I'm
I want to
mixed
put
up.
something out there. I want to put something out there because this is really important, and I need our listeners to know whether they're women, man, or they identify as no gender. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna tell you something. As a woman, kind, clean guys with good personalities pull women regardless of what they look like.
Mhm.
Let me repeat that. Not the nice guy, but actual kind, hygienic, clean men with good personalities are able to date regularly, regardless how they look, as long as they are put together and have a level of charm and intelligence. Try cultivating that. Yes, not everybody in the world can be skinny. Not everybody in the world is going to look like Reggae John Page. Okay, like I don't look like a supermodel, and it's okay. But you
Mhm.
know what is attractive? People who have good personalities, have kindness in their hearts, and actually have read more than one book, and I'm t you know, like, eh, you'd be astonished at what kind of world opens to you with a little bit of kindness, and I'm not talking superficial. Literally, kindness and consideration can get you so much further than
Oh my
whatever the hell
gosh.
this guy is
Yes.
doing. And I just need
Preach.
to put that out there because there's misconception you gotta be rich. It doesn't matter if you're rich. If you're an asshole, even if you're rich, you're either gonna attract people who are interested in what you can do for them and not who you are, and you're gonna be unhappy, or you're going to be unhappy because you think that you're entitled to attract someone, but they don't want you anyway because you suck at humaning. Let's be
Yes.
real here. Like, he could literally have, if he had any charm in his bulky body, he might have even shocked Soo into actually pouring him a damn drink. But he sat there and demanded she do it. Like, cuts checks for her, which he does not. Then pitched a fit when she literally was just like, "We don't do that here." Look at
Yeah.
all of this nonsense. Like, get it together. And I know that it's very hard to date. Like, we're in modern society. We all know that it's hard. And he's just gotten over a divorce. But you do not treat people like garbage to put them in their place and think that people are going to find that attractive. It's absolutely abhorrent. It's literally like throwing a skunk in the middle of a fucking party. Get it together, clean up your act, keep your body clean, and learn to be kind to yourself and to others, and that will get you very far. And
Oh,
I'm gonna
definitely.
get off my soapbox now because I feel
Hey,
like people hear so much.
it is totally fine because honestly, like, just to piggyback off of what you said about the kindness thing, it does not take much. Sometimes all you have to do is just be willing to listen or just give people a kind word. Like, I spend a lot of my day talking to people on the phone who need help because I work at a doctor's office. And, I try to give them a kind word. Some of them are elderly and they don't really get a whole lot of people talking to them. So I try to make that experience good for them. And it's a small kindness, but it's still a kindness. You don't need to do grand gestures. It's okay just to do something small. Just acknowledging somebody's existence is just enough. You know what I
It is.
mean? And you know, I even running my own server for this fandom, it has amazed me how small sorry, let me rephrase that. It amazes me how small acts of kindness, things that took me less than 5 minutes to do, has totally changed someone's life. It has changed their attitude, and it has changed their outlook, and it has given them hope, and I'm just putting that out there. I just wanna echo off of what Digital Girl has said because I feel like we are in a very unprecedented time where hatred and intolerance runs rampant, and people no longer have empathy for their neighbor. And
Yes.
I am a very big advocate of how people should be treated, and I will just leave it at that, but I really think that we need more small acts of kindness because it doesn't take much, it costs nothing to be nice, and you could totally turn someone around by just a simple act of saying, "Hello, how are you?" "Let me Google something for you." I mean, I don't know, but
Yes. And
anyways.
yeah, I just want to say to piggyback off that as well. It doesn't cost you anything to be kind.
Mm-mm.
It literally is small acts of kindness can be the end all be all in someone's life. That doesn't mean it entitles you to someone's affection. It doesn't mean that it makes you entitled to someone's attention. You're acting in such a way that you think it'll grant you the attention that you seek. You shouldn't do it at all, to be honest with you, because if you react in the way that this guy reacted when he told her to pour him a drink and got rejected, that is just as wrong, you know?
Mhm.
But in this time, in this age, we are adults and more people need to learn how to sit with disappointment, process it, and move forward. There was nothing wrong with how Jesus reacted to the situation. She particularly just declined his request to pour the drink. The inability of people to take the word no and to move on is astonishing because
It
it's
really
not just
is.
even if we're looking at a tale of fiction, but this happens to women, men, and people in real life where the literal act of you saying no sends someone in a downward spiral because they don't want to hear the word no, they can't take the word no, but no is the answer, right?
Mhm.
So we need to learn how to we'll regulate our emotions. And if things do not work out the way that you've constructed the story in your head, maybe you just should stop telling yourself stories and deal with the reality rather than the scenario that suits your fancy. And that was something that this man did in this story. He's talking about Hae soo like an object. He's like, I want to snatch her up. She has a nice body. She'll probably be grateful that I paid her any attention. All of that was acts of fiction. Now he pumped himself up to talk to her, and when it did not work out the way he desired or way he envisioned in his head, he became so disappointed that he acted in a way that is irrational and illogical. The
Mhm.
first part of this particular situation was because he had decided that she was going to grant him attention. And he also threw around his title. No one cares about your title, sir. Nothing about this situation was going to go in his favor. And we as adults and we as a society need to be okay with the word no.
Yes,
Sit with
totally.
it. Please sit with if something makes you uncomfortable because you're disappointed, be okay with disappointment and move on. There is
Mhm.
no need for lashing out because you are disappointed. You that knows what that makes you? Do you know what that makes you? A child who
Yes.
doesn't know how to emotionally regulate and throws a temper tantrum. That is for children. Move on. Sit with the disappointment, sit with the discomfort, think about your approach, pivot and move the fuck on. Don't throw
Move
your shot
the
glass
fuck on.
and make yourself move the fuck on. That's serious. And this is something that I would think is a problem for us. And I'm including myself in this for us in a society. It's this idea that you have to have these big emotions and big reactions to rejection that are irrational. We're not in a simulation and we're not in a cartoon.
Mhm.
Be okay with the fact that things do not go your way and stop acting like a terrible two toddler. This is gross.
It is really
Anywho,
gross.
it is so gross.
Yeah.
And I got that off my chest. I have to get off the soapbox because we're getting to the midpoint of the story, and we should probably finish it up before we go on break. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should get through the next couple panels. Okay.
So he says that he wants Jesus to kneel. The owner of the Korean barbecue spot speaks up and he says, "Sir, I understand your frustration, but please remain respectful to my employees." And the idiot Mirai Tech boss says, "What did you just say? Respectful? You think you can get in my face just because your little hole in the wall has been getting some business during a recession? Huh? I know every restaurant owner around here. One word from me, and you won't see a single customer walk through the door." So there's a panel that comes up while the Korean barbecue owner is arguing with the customer, and it shows Jesus back, and she's like, as per usual, when she's uncomfortable, you can see that her shoulders kind of bow, and she's kind of like huddling in on herself, but we only see her back, and then another panel comes up and we see her begin to kneel. And she kneels down and she says, "I sincerely apologize." And we see her looking downcast while she's apologizing. And her colleagues and the boss are like, "Hey, Sue." And both of them say, "Hey, Sue, hey, Sue." And her boss reaches out for her as she's apologizing. And she says, "I misspoke. We'll do our best to make things right." And her boss reaches out to her and says, "Come on, hey, Sue. You don't have to do this." And responds to her boss and says, "No, sir, I should have handled the situation better. Once again, I apologize. Please come back and dine with us again." And then you just see her from the back again with her shoulders bowed and her head is downcast and she's kneeling and we see her from the back. And this particular situation is really sad because willing to prostrate herself before the customer to appease his
Bruised ego.
desire, his bruised ego about being rejected. And she's like, you don't even see, like, she's not flushed. She doesn't even look like flustered. She looks resigned to the fact that this is what needs to be done to get past this situation. It's almost like she's immune to what's happening around her,
Yeah,
which
and we know why.
Yeah, we know why, because she's used to man babies, man child, as our Sabrina Carpenter would say. Um, it's terrible, actually.
It is. But you know what, though? I just want to give a shout out to her boss at the barbecue restaurant because at least
Yes.
he is going to bat for her, you know? And I will say that sometimes in like manhwas and like situations like these, like the boss is always like going, siding with the customer, because, manhwa reasons. But I do like that he is telling her, "Oh, you don't have to do this," and she's like, "No, sir, I should have handled the situation better. Once again, I
Yeah.
apologize." And I think it just speaks to how, how loyal she is to, her manager here because he has helped her out. Like he gave her like a whole month's advance, like 6 chapters ago, just about. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's some loyalty, the fact that she's willing to take it on the chin even though she didn't do anything to deserve it,
He
you
definitely
know,
did not.
and then he went to bat for her, and you know what? That's why I love, her coworkers at the KBBQ restaurant. They are ride or die for her, and I'm all for it.
Definitely ride or die, and they were really taken aback that she was willing to kneel
Yeah.
before the customer just to, like, appease him, and I can imagine like, even thinking about in the previous panel where we see, like, the all of the, like, office workers kinda swarming around the situation, trying to, like, de-escalate it, and the female employee, like, holding Jesus while she's, like, looking down at the floor while she's being yelled at. They knew it was all wrong, but I'm so glad that in this particular scene, the Korean barbecue boss, like, defended her
Mhm.
because, we you're it's a common trope. You see the, like, the terrible customer, and
Yep.
then you usually get that, like, scenario where they get harassed by the terrible customer. Nobody really stops it, or it's another colleague who tries to intervene slickly to like, but there's no repercussions for the customer themselves, right? But in this case, he was like, don't talk to her like that, respect my employees. And then, the customer pushes back and hey, so just, I guess he capitulates just because she just wants this to be over.
Mhm.
And this is probably not the first time that she's had to do something like this, right?
Yeah. I think we even get that, like, in some of the panels coming up,
Yeah.
but, oh, girl, I hate that you
Oh,
have to
girl.
do that, you know?
Yeah, me too.
Ugh. Well, I think this is a good time to take a break, so we are going to take a quick pause, and when we come back, we will continue our analysis of chapter 6.
Yay.
Be right back.
And we're back. Welcome back. Auntie Laura, how you feeling?
Well, I'm ready for the back end of this story because, yeah, I think we're gonna see our Rose guy in a few panels. So,
Oh, yes. So let's get to it. Let's hop
mhm.
to it so we can see our favorite hottie. All right. So after the ruckus with Hae soo kneeling to apologize, we get another panel. It's like a cut scene to the restaurant is empty. And we can see dialogue before we see the the people talking, and you see, I heard about what happened. There was no need for you to apologize like that, Hae soo. He was just being creepy and obnoxious. And then we see in the next scene, we see the KBBQ boss sitting down and he's talking to Hae soo, who's wearing her coat. Looks like she's ready to leave for the day. It looks like they're in the main dining room, but it's empty and the lights are off. And he goes on to say, "I know he usually brings a large group of employees when he comes in, saying since he runs a big company, losing him as a customer would have really hurt your revenue, since not many companies do team dinners nowadays." This is actually Jesus talking in response as to the reason why she decided to apologize. And of course, her expression is pretty mild while she's talking, but she's not really making much eye contact. And she goes on to say, "I couldn't do something like that. Not after everything you've done for me." And we've talked about this before. In chapter one, he gave her an advance on her check a month ahead so that she could have money to help pay off debts. And of course, he even stood up for her while the customer was harassing her. So, it's clear that she has a good support system. At least it's a Korean barbecue spot.
Mhm.
And the manager goes on and he responds, "Oh, hey, Sue, life can be bleak, I know. Some people are just terrible, and sometimes it's just obstacle after obstacle." And we see just, a close up of her boss's face from the side, his side profile, and he seems pretty resigned. And then we see Hey Sue again, and she looks pretty resigned herself, and she's like holding her bag and she's kind of just looking down, and she just says, "I'm all right." And then we see her inner dialogue, which is pretty sad. And she says, I mean it." And it goes from like a white background to black, which is goes into how bleak it can be. And there's a scene of her past jobs, and she goes on to think, "I rushed into part-time work at a young age." And we see her at it looks like a convenience store counter, and it looks like she's being chastised by a customer while she bows. And then there's another scene of her at a construction site, and she's bowing, and it looks like she's being chastised by a coworker. And it says, "And I've been yelled at more times than I could recall. There was once a time when I couldn't even sleep, mulling over all the hurtful things I'd heard. But the wounds on my heart eventually scabbed over, fading into scars that dulled the pain."
Mm. Ugh, I just hate this for her. I mean, I will say that the only good thing about scars is that it does create a barrier so you don't feel the pain as bad, but pain is a good indicator that something is wrong. And sometimes
Yep.
it's not always a good thing when you don't feel pain because it means you're not able to notice any other underlying issues. And I'm sorry, I work admin at a doctor's office, but I do a lot of scheduling and sometimes there's a lot of things that I have to know how to schedule.
Mhm.
So even though we're talking about emotional pain, I feel like that still rings very true. If you ignore pain when pain is your body's way or even your mind's way of letting you know something is very wrong.
Yes.
And I hate that she has built up a tolerance, um, because I can only imagine, like, how much this probably wears away at her day by day, because not only does she get crap at work sometimes, she has to come home to crap,
Right.
and it's just
Yep.
crap day in, day out, and you know what? No wonder she feels numb and withered, because that would make anybody withered. So,
Yes.
girl, I love you. I wish I could give you a hug and, like, dozens upon dozens of the best chocolate chip cookies money could buy.
Absolutely. The prospects are pretty bleak when it comes to the outlook that she has right now.
Yeah.
She's become so accustomed to experience harassment, verbal abuse, processing her pain in such a way that she doesn't even emote. It indicates that she's gone numb to the kind of abuse that she's witnessed. And you're right, like she was young when she learned the cruelties of working in customer facing roles. And when she comes home, there's a cruel person there who primes her to be numb to anyone else's verbal attacks, which seem to like be her norm. And I'm really glad that her boss, this regardless of the ramifications of that customer not coming in anymore, he still told her, "You did not have to do this. It was not expected of you." And he, in a way, tried to comfort her, even though she will not admit that she's even bothered by it. Or maybe she really isn't because she's become so accustomed to this mode of operation where people are just awful.
Mhm.
And you know what? Our girl really does deserve better. But these panels like are glimpses into her past and how she's had to, from a very young age, had to work. And we already know that she's been with her husband for 13 years and she's 33. So we don't know when she started to work. He's been with her husband at least since she was 20.
Mhm.
So she's lived a hard life, which is, so unfortunate, and
Yeah, it really is.
ew, how bleak, how bleak. Now, it goes on, right? 'Cause they finally leave the restaurant after having a little heart to heart, and her boss go on to say, "You said you usually walk home, right? Come on, I'll give you a ride." And Hasty responds, "Thank you, sir, but it's all right." And we don't see them talking. We actually see the name of the Korean barbecue spot, and it says Oink Grill, and it looks like, is that a cow?
It almost
Sure
looks
was a
like a cow to me.
yeah, but it says imported pork. So, like, there's a red sign that says Oink Grill, so we know the name of the spot, right? It's Oink Grill. And she declines his request to drive her home, and she says, "I just started working the night shift at a convenience store." And the boss says, "Another job? When do you get the time to rest then? That kind of schedule can't be good for you." And she responds, "It's not really too bad. I only work at the convenience store on the weekends." So now we already know she has the flower shop job, okay? She works at the Korean barbecue spot, and on the weekends, after working at the KBBQ spot, she goes and she works at the convenience store. So she's 3 jobs in, y'all.
Mhm.
That's freaking crazy. Now, I just wanna say something about this panel. On the actual windows of the storefront, you see a rundown of every kind of meat that they serve. It's pork belly, thick cut pork belly, pork neck, pork intestine, pork small intestine, pork belly, thick cut pork, pork neck. It's like literally all pork. And then the actual logo kind of looks like a cow. It
Yeah,
is a
I just
cow.
zoomed in on it, and I think it is a cow.
Very confused. Korea, what the heck? Well, Oink Grill, guys, the next time we talk about the Korean barbecue spot, we're gonna call it Oink Grill.
Yeah, you know what, though? I'm wondering if maybe this is, like, a marketing strategy, like what Chick-fil-A does, where they have, their mascot is a cow. So, I wonder if
Eat
maybe
chicken.
that's that kind of thing.
Yeah, eat pork. Because they did really only offer pork belly
Mhm.
as a consolation to the customer. So they just have pork everywhere. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Not that I have any problem with it. I already confessed my love
Oh,
for pork
man.
belly.
I
Um,
love bacon. I love me some Cuban pork. I love me some ribs. I will clean
love.
a rib, but anyways, moving on.
Moving on, because
Ugh.
moving on indeed. So we actually get a little cutscene of a close-up of the boss. He looks exasperated when he's speaking with Hae soo because he's really trying to give this girl life advice, and
Mhm.
he's getting rejected. It's literally the purest relationship that I've ever seen in this in this webtoon, by the way. But her boss goes on to say, "I really didn't want to pry, but is your debt really that serious?" And then it goes back to Jesus looking down, and her eyes are very downcast, and she has a very sad expression on. And we fade back into black again. And similar to when they were at the Oink Grill with the customer, we see the sound effect for shattering. And then we see a speech bubble for yelling, and it says, "Stop it. Please stop. I swear we'll pay you back." And the scene that comes up, we see like men in a room, and they have bats, and they're like swinging their bats and breaking everything in sight. And we see more shattering, and we see Jesus' back bent, and she's crying in despair while sitting on the floor in the midst of these broken pieces. of glass and furniture. And then another speech bubble comes up in the darkness and it says, I'm so sorry. And we see Tae crying while sitting on the ground amidst all this glass, and Minchol is there with her. Both of them are not wearing shoes, and he's like basically embracing her from the back. And he says, once we pay off this debt, we can get married again and we'll live happily ever after. Now, we had this conversation, Auntie Laura, about her holding on to the hope and where that hope came from. And guess where the
Yeah,
hope came fucking from?
fucking carrot. I mean, all right. So I'm just going to talk about this super briefly because we are
Yes.
probably going to wax poetical on this. We're going to harp on this through the whole dang series. So, as we can surmise, we know that he took out a debt under her name,
Mhm.
and now now they are reaping the consequences of dealing with shady characters. And when I mean
Yep.
they, I mean specifically Minchol. And I feel like he made this promise to her just to make her feel better. And I feel like he did not understand the words he was truly saying.
Mhm.
And I don't like saying this, but hear me out. I am willing to maybe give him a little bit of grace here because I think he thought he was doing something that would help. And I think he was really trying to comfort her. But I think he overestimated what it was gonna take to pay these people back. And what really gets me is the fact that, like, we can see now the current Minchol, not past Minchol, but we can see that he has some kind of resentment about her and about this debt and about their situation. Like, he has made that abundantly clear, which
Yes.
to me makes this memory like, it physically hurts me to look at it because this I'm looking at it through the lens of somebody that knows about the future chapters, and I can tell that he's really trying here, but it's not enough. He just didn't do enough, and I'm
He
just
did
gonna
not
leave
do it.
that right there.
Yes. I do wanna point something out to the listeners out there about this particular scene. It gives us context into the past, of course, and, I'm not gonna echo what Auntie Laura said because you said it so well. You set that, that gauntlet down for that. But I do want our listeners who eventually do go and read chapter 6 to pay attention to something. The room or the space that they're in is very different from the apartment that they currently live in. If you weren't aware that where Hae soo and Minchol live now, they live in a semi-basement apartment. That means part of that apartment is below ground. It's, below ground level in a basement, and part of it actually is above ground. So their actual windows are very high. The apartment itself looks a bit antiquated, a little careworn, but it's very clean because Jesus maintains it, right? Now, in this scene, when we see the debt collectors coming in and smashing furniture, the house is not the same. The flooring is not the same. It looks to be, and I don't know if this is just regular flooring or it could be carpet. The actual shelving in the apartment is different. The furniture is different. And when we get the scene of Minchal actually embracing Jesus while she cries, the the windows are lower. It looks like it's an above ground apartment. I just wanted to point this out because this is we don't know when this happened. We know it's in the past. I just wanted to point out that this is not the apartment that they currently live in. To a point that Hae soo said that, life was hard. Auntie Laura also pointed out that at some point in the past, Chol tried to take out this debt to be hopeful. One possible theory that I actually put out there is the apartment that they currently have might have been above their means.
Mhm. I think I
And
agree with that theory.
yeah, and that goes it's very much in line with what you said about him taking out the debt with good intention to do something helpful and not really having a good grasp of what it was going to take to pay it back, and in the end, it backfired on both of them. So I do think that at the time, Hae and Minchul were specifically Hae did not realize the scope of what Minchul was doing behind her back. We
Mhm.
don't know the whole story as of yet,
No.
but I do wanna point this out to the listeners to take heed of this. This author that we're talking about now has a propensity to put a lot of details, small details that you don't pay attention to at the time because 'cause you're, like, gulping down the story. Well, what would be the point of doing a read through if we didn't bring to your attention those little Easter eggs that give you context into how Minchol and Jesus ended up in the predicament that they're currently in?
Yeah, I will say that Gae-nim is very good at using the Chekhov's gun device where and for those that don't know, basically Chekhov's gun, there was a Russian writer who wrote a story or something and he had mentioned a gun like at the beginning of the story and then later on it wasn't mentioned till like much later and it had a big part to play. So that is what you call Chekhov's gun. So
Mhm.
basically what I'm saying here is Gae-nim has uses that brilliantly, like, she'll show us, like, small things that we are like, "Okay, that's there." But then in later chapters, it'll come up again in a big way, and this has happened
Yes.
over and over again, and I will say that because this happens so often, we have a on our Discord, we actually have a channel just for theories so people can spiral, because
Yes.
you just
Or
never know.
strategize. Or it's a little bit of spiral, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of tying together the breadcrumbs that Gae-nim gives us
Mhm.
to, like, piece together this story because the actual story is asynchronous, and I just wanna put it out there. It's not linear. We get glimpses into and even through chapter 6, we get glimpses into the past, we get glimpses into the present, and we're not quite sure where we are on the page. And I do want to put that out to people. The expectation that it's going to be a linear storyline, put that away and expect it to be asynchronous, which means that there are going to be certain times when the time is not linear. There'll be past, present, flip back and forth, future as well. Just a little priming for the
Yeah,
babies.
yeah, we
It's
need that priming.
Yes, because people read a story and they expect it to just be straight up linear. It's like this is the present. Every moment that you're reading is a present in time, and that's not how the story works. So I would
Mm-mm.
just want to prime you as a listener to set your expectations straight when you read this story. So yes.
Yeah, well, after we get that little flashback, and then I think it's interesting that the "will live happily ever after" almost looks like it's kind of fading, like the memory is fading
Yeah,
after she thinks about it.
totally. But, I just wanna say that it had echoed what she was saying about their happy life when she reminded him with using the exact words that he said to her when he was apologizing, he balked at the idea and said, "Stop reminding me, stop nagging me, or I won't do it." Like, you're the one who said it out of your mouth that you were
Mhm,
going to get married again.
mhm.
Such a bitch-made person. Anyway, going on, moving on.
Yeah, so the next panel that we get after that is Hae soo to the present. They're still
Mhm.
standing outside of the BBQ restaurant, and she's kind of, like, looking to the side, and she answers the owner's question, and she says, "Yes," talking about the debt. The next panel that we get is her walking alone at night. It's a beautiful panel, actually, the colors are really pretty.
Yes.
And then we get some of her inner dialogue, which says, "Even the brush of wind against the door makes me flinch, afraid the debt collectors have come back. But still, I dream of a brighter future with every step."
Well,
Girl.
the lighting in this particular panels, like, it's not dust motes that you see, it's like the
Lens
sparkles.
flares, yeah.
Yes, the lens flares, you got it. It's really pretty because you see her walking away, and she's just literally walking down a dark street, and the fact that but still, I dream of a brighter future with every step. The fact that she can still hold on to optimism in such a in her bleak circumstances says a lot about her as a person and her resilience.
Yeah, it really does, even though I feel like it's a little bit misplaced, and I'm not saying that as an insult against Hae soo. I just feel like with what we've seen of Minchol, he has just let his field of fucks go barren.
Yep.
And, like, Jesu's the only one that hasn't noticed, and I hate to put it that way, but I think if I feel like if she doesn't have this hope right here, I don't think she has any hope at all, and I hate to say that, but here we are,
Yeah, she's clinging to hope. I
she
think it's
really
more
is.
so clinging to the belief that there is something to look forward to in this life that she lives. And, like even that memory was a bit, even though it was very dark, what she was reminiscing about, it was still drenched in light because of those quotes.
Mhm,
With Minchall saying, "I am sorry. I'll figure this out. Then we'll be able to get married again and we'll be happy, live happily ever after." There's still this element of it being desperate, but still drenched in light in the way it's like drawn is that way, as if
mhm,
there's that's the light at the end of the tunnel, even though they're literally their relationship is ruined and they're sitting amongst the remnants
mhm.
of their once intact dream.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is very representational, like you said, of like how her general feeling is. Because another thing, that stands out to me too is the fact that she's walking alone.
Mhm.
And I feel like that is a nod to how Minchell has basically given up at this point, and
Abandoned her.
she's basically walking this walk all by herself. So
Yep,
I don't know. I wish it were
it
different for her. I
I do
really
too,
do.
because the thing is like, if you notice about chapters 1 through 6 demonstrate to you, like, they show that she literally does not do anything to anyone to cause harm.
Mm-mm,
Even when they're weird to her, when they're intimidating, she literally takes it on the chin and it remains resilient in the face of adversity. It doesn't respond in a way that, like, I don't wanna say a normal human because there's no real such thing as normal. There's a baseline for what's considered socially acceptable. Normality is it's a myth, but a less resilient person would have broken down at the kind of burdens that she faces. Instead of, like, breaking, she, like, gets even more determined to fight against her fate
mm,
in her failing relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that for her,
You
you know?
know, that's a common theme. That's a common thread that we've I've been saying since day one.
Ugh, I
She don't
know.
do nothing to nobody. She is literally the most harmless character and kind character, like genuinely kind. She doesn't seem to have a malicious bone in
Mm-mm,
her body, but here we are watching her face the reality of being burdened with debt all alone and finding solutions by herself.
yeah, I agree. She's always been by herself, poor thing. Well,
Uh-huh.
as she
Yeah,
is walking off into the lonely night, a panel of that guy
that guy. Ew.
who is drunkenly walking. And it's funny because there's little words that is like wobble wobble, and then he's kind of talking to himself, and we know he's kind of drunk just because of the way the word balloon is drawn. And he's like, heh, the way she begged on her knees. And then we see we're getting some inner dialogue from drunk Broseph, but lo and behold, who is in the alleyway dressed like Batman, except for the mask, kind of. Well, he's not wearing body armor, but we always joke on the server how Taeha's kind of like Batman. So he's lurking, And we're getting the inner dialogue of the drunk guy, and he's like, "I bet she knows her place now. She was just making things harder for herself. Should have just poured that darn drink when I asked nicely." This is exactly why you have to put them in their place early on, no matter how pretty they are. Otherwise, they think they can get away with anything just because you're nice to them. So, to describe what's going on, as I mentioned, Taeha is kind of lurking in the alleyway. He's got his hands in his pocket and he's just watching this guy make his way drunkenly down the street. And as he is talking about how he has to put them in their place, which it makes me
Gross.
want to punch him in the fucking face, we see, you know, Taeha Batman.
I'm Taeha.
Yeah, kinda behind him now. He has come out of the alley and he's, like, kind of following at a little bit of a distance. So then, Roly Poly Man is, still wobbly walking, and then the word bubbles, which is his inner dialogue, says, "Now that I've given her a little scolding, I'll turn on the charm next time. Women love a man who can be cold and gentle at the same time, right? Heh.
Gross.
Ugh. Bleh." And then we get a close up of Teha again, who's obviously following him, and he is dressed in all black, by the way. And then the
Mhm.
next word bubble says, "Maybe next week I can pull her aside and then we see Teha bringing back his leg, and then all of a sudden we see pow, crash, arg. And then the guy is like his fat ass is on the ground, and he's like, "Damn it, what in the world? What the hell do you think you're doing? Get over here, I'll teach you a lesson."
Idiot.
Ugh, and then Teha says, "Lesson," and keep in mind, Teha is wearing gloves, which they kinda look like leather gloves.
Yeah, black leather gloves, y'all.
Mhm. And then he grabs, homeboy by the hair, which he ain't got very much, but he's like,
Nope.
"I also have a lesson for you." And he's kinda, like, holding him, and he's looking at him, talking at the same time. And he's like, "Ah, that hurts," talking about Roly Poly, "my precious hair." And
Lack of
then
thereof.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, Teha is like, "Hit me." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "I said, hit me." And then Roly Poly is, like, freaking out now, because I'm sure he's still kinda drunk, and he's like, "You think you can talk to an adult like that, you little shit? Well, you're asking for it now. I used to box back in my prime." And
Boy,
then
please.
yeah, I was like, "You ain't that much of a threat, but okay." So then the next panel, we see like Teha getting hit. There's a thwack. We see some blood. And then Teha just stands there smirking. And he says, or the next panel, he's like wiping the blood, off of his mouth. And he's like, "Good. Do you have any clue who I am?" And then now Teha's kind of looming over him. And the guy looks a little frightened. And he's like, "Huh? Why the hell should I care who you are?" And he's like, "I see," meaning Teha. And my beautiful flowers, this next panel is just so menacing.
Yep, and fucking hot while we were at it.
Yes, it is. I have a thing for gloves. I don't know why, but moving on. We see Teha. It's just him like, from the just a little below the torso. Basically, like, the way that it's drawn is that, we're only getting, like, a glimpse. We don't have his shoulders, but, we see that he's actually, like, tightening his gloves. He's, like, tugging them, like, tighter, and he says, "In that case, I'll just have to teach you." And then we see "Pow," and then we get our cover, which is
Mm,
basically Teha putting on some, like, sweats, he's putting on a hoodie, and then we get just a little peek of that, fine ass body. We get to see some,
mm.
like, muscle, like some abs, like that start of the little V section.
The
Um,
happy trail, just a little bit of the happy trail, just a sneak peek.
yeah, we just where the hip area is, and, it's kinda hot. Um,
It's really not actually.
yeah. So, I wanna say that I think it's disgusting the way this guy is talking about teaching saying that he has, like, put her in her place and, he has to teach her early, which kinda goes back to the whole thing about grooming and
Mhm.
getting people used to a certain type of behavior, and this guy is just fucking disgusting. And
Gross.
I wanna say too, though, that as much as I'm glad that this guy is getting his just desserts, it does kind of bother me how casual Taeha is about this level of violence. You know what I mean?
It just the duality of this man, because clearly he's been playing a role of being like an innocuous admirer on the fringes of Jesus' life, right? But now this particular scene makes clear that he sees far more and is far more involved in the goings on in Jesus' life than initially considered or portrayed in this chapter. And not only that, he is willing, without compunction, to deal out justice to people he feels has wronged. There's no other reason that he would approach that man
Mhm.
other than because of Jesus. I just
Yes.
want to put that out there. Like, there's no other context beyond what happened previously. So it's clear that Taeha is not the harmless little puppy that he's portraying. He's a criminal because he's lurking in alleyways waiting to beat people the fuck up.
Yeah,
He
and
just
let's
be
not forget that,
beating
like, we
him.
did not see Taeha in that restaurant. So, we know he must be watching because otherwise how would he know to beat
How would he know?
fuck out of this guy for disrespecting his potential woman.
Yep. He literally is lurking somewhere. Where he was when this was happening, have no clue. But it is clear that he has enough balls to go confront a man who's clearly a business owner and ask him. And that's significance. I want to put this out there too. There is significance in him asking him, "Do you know who I am?"
Mhm.
That's not something, there's a
Random.
reason for that.
Exact
That's not something, there has to be a reason behind that, which we'll, like, certainly, I think we'll explore later. But I will say to you all, dear readers, I've been watching Bridgerton's a little too much, but whatever. The fact that he had the audacity to say that, and then he was like, "Oh, well, you're about to learn the hard way," basically. And then make sure his leather murder gloves are ready to beat this man up. It's crazy. And yes, I agree with you, Auntie, about the way that he talked about Hae soo. Very disgusting language around his, like, method to taming basically a rebellious personality. Very gross, very uncalled for, and very audacious because that woman does not like you. She thinks you're awful.
Yeah, she really does, I just can't get over the audacity of the fact that he thinks that he's putting her in her place and that
Mhm.
he has to teach her, at the get-go so she'll stay in line, and that is oh, the misogyny. Where do I
The
begin?
misogyny and the I like, there's no consideration that the woman that he's envisioning and building this whole storyline around in his head could not have a dollop of interest in him whatsoever, could possibly, she's an attractive woman, she could possibly already be in a relationship. He's building this whole storyline around the idea that now that he's tamed her by making subdued her, that now that he approaches her, she'll be more open to his kindness in his interest, which is gross. Like, sir,
Mm, mm-mm.
nobody wants you.
No.
No one. And now you got beat up because you got too sassy. And you know another thing? I just wanted to point this out. I know I'm flopping around a little bit. The fact that Taeha asked him to hit him first, and then use that provocation to get him to hit him. And then after he hit him, he's like, "All right, now I can beat you up."
Yep. And that's definitely on brand for him. And we will see this kind of come up in chapters to come. So I'll just,
Hmm.
leave that there. But I do think it's interesting that he says some of the same things to him that this guy said to Hae soo, which again, we know that Taeha was not in the restaurant, but yet he knew what went on, so I would be
Hmm.
really interested to find out, like, how how Broseph did that, especially when he's like, "Do you have any clue who I am?" So yeah, like, I just love the hot, menacing way that he's about to do some violence on this guy.
Not even just that, but if you notice in these panels, so a lot of, as I said before, like Taeha has played this part of being like this like harmless puppy is in the last 5 chapters. Now in this chapter, something to be aware of, after like he was lurking in the alleyway watching the man walk, right? So that's already menacing. He looks menacing, dressed in all black, looming over this man. And then his eyes, this is really important, y'all. His eyes basically are given luminescent gray
Mhm.
as he is talking to this man. Like everything about him is giving frightening.
Yes.
Like I'm scaroused
I
because it's
mean,
very hot.
can we also talk about, like, that panel cover where we
Yes,
get to see a little
baby.
bit of those abs? I'm sorry. I am obsessing over these abs, but,
They're not,
anyways.
not even just the abs, but also a piece of happy trail. So it's literally we watch him as he's pulling the sweatshirt in his like the t-shirt undershirt down, but they've decided, and he's doing this. And by the way, I just want to point this out too. He's doing this in a abandoned warehouse,
Yeah, he's definitely in, like, some,
kind of shady business.
yeah,
And
we used to joke on the server how, we thought Teha had, like, a bat cave or something. But I will say that, like, even though he is mostly clothed, it is really, really hot to see just that little bit of, like, abs, so
and the intense of, and also he's breaking, the fourth wall because it's literally staring into the reader's soul
mhm,
Willis he puts on his clothes. So I just
yes,
want to put that out there.
yeah,
And he's wearing sweatpants.
mhm,
Viva la sweatpants. So
especially when they hang a little bit low.
yes, low
Anyways,
on the pelvic bone. Anyways, moving on from us
Gae-nim and her thirst
thirsting,
traps.
thirsting, roll heavy. So now the scene cuts, right? Like
Mhm,
there's no more beating up the business manager. Now we're in front of, it looks like a store. And we see Jesus stocking the shelves, and then she's wiping down the tables outside the store. So we see her diligently working, and then she's back at the counter. So it does look like she's at the convenience store doing her extra shift after working a long day. And she has dialogue, and she just says, "Phew, I didn't think that the night shift would be so much work." Still, it's nice being able to focus on work without having to deal with customers because she's had a hard day. She had to deal with a jerk,
mhm,
and now the convenience store is pretty empty and she's there waiting. Now she says, maybe I'll rest my legs for a bit. Nobody comes in around this time anyway. So what we see Hasty do is we see her like basically close her eyes, similar to what we saw in chapter 1, where it looks like she's almost trying to just rest her eyes a little bit and take a nap. But then the door jingles and she opens her eyes and she says, welcome in. And then who walks in with a big tall man in a dark jacket, wearing a sweatshirt covering his head and sweatpants. And Hey Sue is like, huh? The rose guy, because she doesn't know his name yet. He's looking through the aisle and looks like he's like picking up something to buy. And he says, can I even call it a coincidence at this point? Um, she said, "I already seen him at my two of my jobs, and now he's here. Maybe we just live in the same neighborhood. I can't even ask someone else to take his order for me. I'm the only one here. So she can't avoid him now. Like at the flower shop, he has been basically taking his order from her coworker. But
Mhm.
now, in this situation, there's no way to avoid interacting with him. So he picks up something from the aisle, walks over to the front counter, and we get this like shot of him from the back, and he's like literally looming over her at the counter.
Mhm.
And and then we see her in her dialogue again. It just says, "Well, we're supposed to be strangers now," and she looks down and away from him as she's, like, thinking that, and she just thinks, "I'll just treat him," and she looks down at what he put places on the countertop, and it's Band-Aids, and then she finishes her thought, and it says, "Like any other customer," and then she looks finally, like, she looks at him after she sees the Band-Aids, and she has, like, this question in her eyes, and when she looks at Taeha, she sees that he has this his lip the right side of his mouth is bruised, and he has a bruise on his cheek. Because remember, he asked the guy to hit him, and he
Mhm.
came in with the bruise, and we realized why he asked the guy to hit him.
Yep.
And she just in her dialogue, she says, "What happened to his face?" And the chapter ends.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this little section. So I feel like now we are finally getting to the heart of the matter. We have figured out how he plans to get her attention by showing up. And I think it's funny that she's now like, oh, I've already seen him at two of my jobs, and now he's here too. And like her first thing is, well, maybe we just live in the same neighborhood, which honestly isn't that much out of the realm of possibility.
But can I even call it a coincidence at this
Yeah,
point? Because she's
exactly.
suspicious.
And it's funny that like how he is kind of manipulating the situation um to like so that she has to interact with him. And I mean, Broseph knows what he's doing right now.
Oh, he fucking knows.
Yeah, he totally does.
Absolutely know. Like he literally orchestrated getting revenge for her against the unruly customer, leveraging that opportunity to get attacked, coming into the convenience store now that she has this job in loudly and proudly, and he doesn't say anything at all, proudly showing off his newly minted bruise
Mhm.
while buying Band-Aids. So
Mhm.
he presents it as a coincidence, but it's clear it's not. We know as the readers that it's not a coincidence. This man is following her for real.
Yep. I mean, I will say that, like, last panel of him, he's very good at making himself seem like a puppy, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
he doesn't look like just, like, a couple panels ago, this guy was, like, throwing down, he was looking ultra menacing by making sure his gloves were secure, like, that was like a murder face, right?
A murder face man, and now he's innocuous hoodie puppy boy, and
Yeah.
the murder gloves are gone.
Yep, and now he's just, like, dressed down in just sweats and hoodie, and then he's just looking like a lost little boy. So,
Mhm. With a
oh
bruised
dear.
face, and
Yeah,
she just, like, notices what happened to his face, and it ends. God, I can't wait for chapter 7 because
yeah.
we're gonna see if his schemes pay off or not. Overall, how do you feel about this chapter, Auntie Laura?
I thought it was very illuminating, because we got a little bit more of their background. Well, Hae soo's background, we understood a little bit more about the debt, and I also think that it was really interesting how we get the inner dialogue of, like, random characters,
Mhm.
especially even though I hate Piggy McGee, that's my name for Roly
Oh my
Poly
god.
Piggy McGee.
Oh my
I
god.
mean, I mean, even though we normally don't really get a lot of inner dialogue from side characters, I really thought it was kind of important because Madam Void, who is on our server, has made this comment many times. And I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast, but she has said many times how relevant this story is and how, with the 4B movement in South Korea, and just in general, especially now with the Epstein files and, all of that coming out. And I think it's really important that we bring to light these type of behaviors because I think people need to know what to look out for. And I mean, it was really disgusting seeing how this guy was trying to test the waters to see if he could groom Hae soo.
Yep.
And honestly, I have read this chapter a few times and I've never picked up on that. And I will say that probably most of that is just for the fact that I have been doing a little bit of a deep dive regarding the Epstein files, but anyways, I feel, I do agree with Madam Void. I think that this story is like relevant for a lot of reasons. And I do like the fact that we are seeing a woman who is really just trying to pick up the pieces and she's just trying to live and exist in a world where people are disrespecting her.
And
Um,
look at objectify her even though she like it no, there's no even though, objectify her. Like
yeah. Mhm.
there's no reason to objectify someone, but particularly in the situations where gotten carried away, it's very much unprovoked, but there's no such thing as provocation for objectifying someone, just to say, you know,
Mhm.
I just want to put that out there. But I agree with you in the world that we live in from, the earliest point in history, women have been treated in such a way that they didn't have rights, they couldn't vote, they didn't have a voice in the household, they couldn't own property. It belonged to the husband. So
Mhm.
there has been, depending on the country we're talking about, like there is a common thread. Even in the United States, women couldn't even have a credit card until what, the 60s?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
Something like that. Women didn't have the right to vote
yeah, we've only
until
had the right to vote for a century and, like, not to, like, be well, actually, but I am gonna play this card, and even
go
then, it
ahead.
was only, like, white women. Women
Yep.
of color, I don't think had the right to vote until, like, what, the 50s or 60s, I wanna say?
Well, suffrage, like women's suffrage started with white women, and the idea that women had less rights than men, despite having to exist in a world where they had to contribute to society regardless of their sex, is something that is unconscionable, but we need to recognize that this history exists. And as
Yes.
we're looking at the context and the characters within this story, there is a lot of dialogue, inner dialogue, and dialogue between characters that exemplify the current structure of society as it exists. The idea that a woman is literally a vehicle for someone else's personal pleasure and interest was evoked through the inner dialogue and conversation that the manager of the Mirai Tech group facilitated with Hae soo in the way that he treated her. He
Mhm.
still desired to have her. He thought that nagging her, demeaning her, and making her bow before him would bring her down a peg enough to think less of herself, and because now she thinks less of herself, she'll realize that accepting his attention is acceptable.
Yep.
He's never actually thought of her as a human being who's autonomous and has every right not to want him, and
Yes.
also who's not interested in him.
Yes.
That is crazy to me. Like, that whole dialogue that he had, there had been one moment that he considered that this was not it for him.
Yeah. I also agree with all of that because I also kind of feel like just to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, he never even considered like how she might feel, you know.
Not at all.
And for him, meaning roly poly, fucker McGee, I think that he just wanted her to submit. And I know that there are still certain cultures out there where they demand that women always submit to men. And I know this comes from like ancient times and like what have you, but we're in the 21st century and women have only, or at least in the US, most women have only had the right to vote for only a century. And that should tell you something. We've only had this for 100 years. And yet we're still being treated like we're lesser just because we don't have dangly bits. And it just really bothers me. And I know sometimes that when we do our chapter discussions on the server, I kind of joke about how I go on a feminist rant. And it's more because I just don't want people to be judged by their gender. I just want them to be treated as people because at the end of the day, we're all people. We all bleed, we all breathe, we poop, we pee, you know,
Yep, we all do that.
you
We
know,
have
and
go ahead, girl.
nah, you're good. I'm just kind of going off on a tangent, but what I'm trying to
No
say is we're all
worries.
people and there's no reason why we have to treat each other like garbage. So that was my point. Sorry
There's
for the
definitely no
journey.
reason. No worries. There's no reason that anyone should treat anyone else with anything less than the respect that they think that they deserve, right?
Indeed.
But we live in a society, and I just wanted to put this out there because people have been converted over to chauvinistic pigs, or another word that we can call it is incels,
Mhm. Yep.
where there is this thread or this like thought that women are supposed to bow down to men, which is weird. And then when that doesn't happen, then th- the mode of operation is to be say derogatory things about women.
Mhm.
It is very weird. We live in a weird time, and I do understand that it's just ideology that has perpetuated itself over time, and people are reminiscing and being wistful about a past where they could actually like have a wife or have a woman simply because they were a man. Desperation because a woman couldn't own anything.
Yeah.
You're wistful for a time when everybody's lifespans were like really freaking short. Medical medicine and science weren't as advanced. Nobody really owned people. Society, the strata of society was very separated, that there was super haves and absolutely ultra have nots.
Mhm.
And you were dirt poor, but you like had someone to lord it over because you could feel good about yourself and cast yourself upon them to have them pop out kids. What are we doing here? In
Yeah.
Women's History Month in the United States, actually, like International Women's Day is coming up. We're not doing that anymore. You want to know why? We live in a world where capitalism is king, and we can't even barely sustain living on our own, let alone trying to support another human being. We all have to work. And we've all had to work since freaking like what? Black women always had to work. I'm just gonna put this out there for the masses. We never not had to work. Okay? There's no such thing. And then with World War II, with all the men gone to war, women had to work too. In the factories, everybody had to work. And now in the society we live in where nothing's affordable. Everybody has to freaking work to survive.
Mhm.
And then there's obviously a society where there are women who don't have to work because they're the money class, whether it be new money or old money. But the normies, we all have to work.
Yeah.
This idea of the traditional society where women stay at home and cook and raise the children, that doesn't work anymore.
No, it doesn't. And I'll
We
tell
don't
you why
can't
too.
afford housing,
Well,
food.
part of it too is the people that lament those days of old, the reason
Mhm.
why that they are lamenting that is the fact that it would have benefited them,
Yep.
and that's the only reason why. It's all about, having the power to do what you want and then making
To
other
another
people
person.
do what they want. Yeah, it's all about
Yeah.
dominance. And not
Yeah,
even in the
and
not even the fun kind of dominance.
oh my, I mean, it is the consenting fun kind of done. I feel like we live in a day and age where these archaic thought processes are not evolving with the needs of the times.
No, they
And
aren't.
unfortunately, because and I go back to what I said before, dear listeners, if you don't cultivate a personality, kindness, and care for yourself and others, you end up with nothing. And we're in unprecedented times where people actually have to have kindness, personalities, and actual care for self and others that is starkly missing that will leave them missing out on being able to find someone who will care and love them.
Yeah.
And it is an unfortunate situation. And rather than taking that in stride, iterating and growing and becoming a better person, everyone's starting, not everyone, because that's a, hyperbole, but people are starting to turn inward on themselves and becoming a race of menchols who are just negative Nancy's who run around negging everyone.
Ugh.
Negative negging Nancy's.
Yeah,
Um,
very much
who
so.
can't take care of themselves, can't wash a dish, don't know how to do laundry. Only thing Minchol knows how to do is, at this point, where he's going, it looks like cheat and take a bath.
Yeah, I know that's right. Well,
He don't pay a bill either. Anyway, we'll get more into it as we go along, but
yeah.
seriously, don't do that. Be better.
Yes, be definitely better. Well, I did wanna, like, look at a couple of the comments on, English
Go
Webtoon.
for it.
So the top comment says, "I'm seriously crying for this woman. I feel so bad for her. No one deserves a life like this. Also, I respect the hell out of her manager for protecting his employees like
Yes.
that and caring
Man,
that much about her. He's a real boss to respect."
and
And
adore.
yeah, and, like, that comment has, like, 40,000 likes and
Yeah.
58 dislikes.
Which is wild. Like, who
Yeah,
are you that dislikes someone supporting, like a good person supporting another person?
yeah, but you know what? I wonder if sometimes when people hit, like, the thumbs down, I wonder if they've just done it by accident.
No, you
Um,
can get rid of it. Coming from someone who comments and likes things on English webtoons, you can actually retract that if you want to. That's just people saying thumbs down.
whatever. But the next top comment was, "Now bandage him" sorry. "Yeah, now bandage him up, girl. I know you want to." And that one has, like, almost 29,000 likes. And, another one that I find interesting says, "I have to say, if he wasn't hot, this would 100% be a stalker situation, Mao." And then one last one, "The black gloves let me know exactly what kind of guy we're dealing with." With a crying, laughing emoji, so
Listen, them black gloves let you know it's business. That whole
mhm.
puppy, the abandoned puppy look is a facade, my people,
It
my
is a
people.
facade for sure. Well, with that being the case, we have come to the end of chapter 6. I look forward to reading chapter 7 with you. And do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave us with before we end?
No, it's been quite the pleasure to review chapter 6 with you, Auntie Laura, and with you all who are listening in. I look forward to chapter 7, y'all.
And with that, I just want to invite you to our Discord server, the Withered Flowers. We have all kinds of discussions. We usually have like hangouts on Friday nights after the chapter releases. So the link will be in the show notes. If you would like to contact us on socials, you can find me, Auntie Lura, at Auntie Lura317 on TikTok. That about does it. So we appreciate you as always for listening. And we will be back to unpack chapter 7. So good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
The Withered Flowers podcast is hosted by Digital Gurl and Auntie Lura. Music is Bodega Cat by Dayala, courtesy of YouTube. Edited and produced by Auntie Lura. Please join us on the Withered Flowers Discord server for community and discussions. Tell them Auntie Lura and Digital Gurl sent you. We would like to give a special shout out to all of our server boosters: Nana, Che Liss, Kit Sundere, Chrissy the Cat Lady, Danielle, Amy01, Digital Gurl, Toji Fushiguro, Andy, EXO_KB, and Hoodie. We very much appreciate your support, and we will see you next time. Bye!